Welcome, dear listeners, to The Veil Thins, an invitation to fear. In the quiet corners of our world where the bustle of daily life recedes, other presences sometimes make themselves known. Tonight we venture into one such domain, the seemingly ordinary hostel, a place of transient lives and, as we shall discover, lingering echoes. Prepare yourselves as we embark on a journey into the chilling unknown, exploring haunting encounters in the hostel. Listen closely and observe with an open yet wary mind. The darkness here holds secrets, and tonight some of them will be revealed. Here, in the hushed confines of a hostel room, long after the city outside has succumbed to slumber, a different kind of awareness begins to stir. It often starts subtly, a mere prickling sensation at the nape of the neck, an almost imperceptible shift in the room's atmosphere. This is the first indication that one is not perhaps entirely alone.
The feeling of being watched, an ancient primal instinct, asserts itself with a quiet insistence that is difficult to ignore. The sensation intensifies, not as a direct gaze, but as an encompassing awareness.
It is as if the very walls, the aged wooden floorboards, the shadows pooled in the corners, have developed a collective consciousness. This is not the comforting presence of a fellow traveller, but something far more ancient, a silent observer in the deep of night.
The human mind, ever seeking rational explanations, might initially dismiss it. A draft perhaps, the settling of an old building, or merely the overactive imagination of a weary traveller in unfamiliar surroundings. Yet the feeling persists, growing stronger with each passing minute. A heavy blanket of unseen attention that presses down, making the air feel thick and difficult to breathe.
It is a deeply unsettling experience, this unwelcome intrusion into one's personal space by an invisible entity. Sleep, which had seemed so inviting moments before, now becomes an elusive prize. Every creak of the building, every distant sound from the street below is amplified, filtered through this heightened state of alert. The darkness, once a comforting cloak, now seems to teem with unseen possibilities, each shadow a potential hiding place for the source of this unnerving observation.
The heart beats a little faster, a silent drum against the stillness of the room. And then the whispers begin. At first, they are almost imperceptible, like the rustling of dry leaves carried on a breeze that isn't there, or the faintest sigh from just beyond the range of hearing.
One might strain to listen, unsure if it is a trick of the ears or perhaps the sound of plumbing in the ancient walls, or even the murmur of voices from an adjacent room, muffled and indistinct. But these are no ordinary sounds. They possess a peculiar quality, a sibilance that seems to slither through the air, devoid of discernible words, yet laden with an unmistakable intent.
They are not directed at you, but rather around you, as if discussing your presence in hushed, conspiratorial tones. The language, if it can be called that, is alien, ancient, and utterly chilling to the core.
The whispers seem to emanate from no single source, yet they are undeniably present, sometimes seeming to come from the darkest corner of the room, at other times from directly behind one's head, or even from within the very mattress upon which one lies. They ebb and flow, rising and falling in volume, a phantom chorus in the oppressive silence, each breathy utterance a tiny icicle pressed against the skin.
Fear, cold and sharp, begins to take root. The mind races, trying to make sense of the inexplicable, to find a logical anchor in a sea of encroaching dread. But logic offers little comfort when faced with phenomena that so blatantly defy it.
The whispers continue, a relentless, insidious assault on the senses, eroding the boundaries of the known and the trusted. It is often at this juncture, when the senses are already strained, that the shadows begin to play their part.
In the periphery of vision, a flicker, a movement too quick to register fully. Was it a trick of the light? A moth fluttering past the dim glow filtering through the window? Or something else? something that belongs to the deeper darkness of the room.
One turns quickly trying to catch it, but there is nothing. Consider the plight of the student, newly arrived at a hostel, perhaps for their first extended stay away from home. The room is Spartan, functional, a blank canvas upon which the experiences of the coming months will be painted. Little do they suspect that this canvas is already occupied by a silent, unseen roommate.
The initial signs are often subtle, easily dismissed as quirks of an old building or personal forgetfulness. A book left on the desk is later found on the floor. A door, carefully closed, is discovered ajar. Small items seem to migrate from one place to another when no one is looking.
But then, the cold spots begin to manifest. These are not mere drafts. They are distinct pockets of unnatural chill. One might walk through such a spot and feel a sudden intense drop in temperature.
It lingers for a moment, then dissipates as quickly as it came. These chilling anomalies often coincide with a peculiar stillness in the air.
It is in these pockets of cold and silence that the presence of the phantom roommate is most keenly felt. Objects may then begin to move with more overt intent. Not just a gentle slide, but a distinct shift, a fall, or even on rare occasions, a levitation.
A pen might roll off a flat surface with no discernible cause. A picture frame might tilt or fall from the wall. These are not violent acts, but rather like the playful or perhaps testing prods of an invisible hand. The student, understandably, becomes increasingly unnerved.
The initial rationalizations wear thin, replaced by a growing suspicion that something deeply unnatural is occurring. Sleep becomes difficult, punctuated by strange noises, soft taps on the wall, a faint scratching sound, or the almost inaudible creak of floorboards.
It is often during these restless nights that more direct encounters occur. A feeling of pressure on the bed, as if someone has sat down beside them. A cold breath felt on the cheek or the back of the neck. The distinct impression of being touched by unseen fingers, a fleeting icy contact that sends shivers down the spine.
These are the calling cards of the phantom roommate, seeking to make its presence known. Sometimes a faint scent accompanies these manifestations, perhaps the lingering aroma of an old-fashioned perfume, or the musty smell of clothes long packed away. These olfactory clues can be particularly unsettling as they suggest a personality, a history to the unseen entity.
They are ghostly echoes of a life once lived within these same four walls. In some cases, the phantom roommate may have a tragic backstory, a tale woven into the history of the hostel itself. Perhaps a former resident who met an untimely end, their spirit now tethered to the place of their demise.
Research into the building's past, or hushed conversations with long-term staff, might unearth fragments of such a story, lending a chilling context to the ongoing phenomena. Chapter 3. The Haunted Hallway.
The hallway. In any dwelling, it is a place of transition, a conduit between spaces, rarely a destination in itself. But in certain hostels, steeped in age and untold histories, the hallway can become a theater of the spectral, a narrow stage where the echoes of the past play out with unnerving regularity.
Here, the very air seems thick with unspoken stories, and every shadow seems a little too deep, a little too still. Students, and sometimes even staff, recount a pervasive sense of dread that descends upon them when traversing particular corridors, especially late at night. It is more than just the inherent quietness of a sleeping building. It is an active, palpable feeling of unease, as if the hallway itself is watching, waiting. This is the domain of the haunted hallway, a place where the veil is thinnest.
The first and most common phenomenon reported is that of phantom footsteps. In the dead of night, when the entire hostel is still, the distinct sound of footsteps can be heard, pacing the length of the corridor. Sometimes they are heavy, measured, like those of a man in boots. At other times they are light, almost furtive, like a child tiptoeing or the rustle of a long skirt. These footsteps often seem to possess an intelligence. They might approach from one end of the hallway, pass by a listener's door, and then recede towards the other end, only to fade into silence. Attempts to find their source are invariably fruitless. Opening the door reveals only an empty, silent corridor, the air still and undisturbed. Yet the sound was undeniable.
Then there are the disembodied voices, faint whispers, sighs, or even muffled cries, seeming to emanate from the very walls of the hallway. These are rarely clear words, more often just fragments of sound, emotional utterances that speak of sorrow or sometimes distress. They are fleeting, often heard when one is alone, and quickly dismissed as imagination, until they are heard again.
Cold spots, similar to those experienced in haunted rooms, are also a frequent occurrence in these corridors. A sudden, inexplicable drop in temperature in a specific section of the hallway. A chill that raises gooseflesh and makes the breath mist, even when the rest of the building is warm. These cold zones are often associated with the areas where other phenomena are most frequently reported.
Apparitions, though rarer, are the most terrifying encounters in the haunted hallway. These are not always full-bodied figures. More often they are fleeting glimpses, a shadowy form darting across the far end of the corridor, a translucent figure momentarily visible in the dim emergency lighting, or the distinct impression of someone standing just out of sight around a corner.
One widely circulated tale speaks of a grey lady, a sorrowful, ethereal figure seen drifting silently along a particular upper floor hallway. She never makes a sound, her feet never seeming to touch the floor. Her appearance is often accompanied by a profound sense of sadness and a drop in temperature. Those who have seen her report feeling an overwhelming urge to weep.
Another story tells of a more unsettling presence. A tall, dark figure, often seen lurking at the end of a dimly lit corridor, simply standing and watching. It makes no move, no sound, but its intense, malevolent gaze is reportedly palpable, instilling a primal fear in anyone unfortunate enough to encounter it. The tales you have heard tonight are but glimpses into a world that coexists with our own, a realm of shadows and whispers that sometimes intrudes upon the unsuspecting. The hostel, a place of fleeting stays, can for some become an arena for encounters that are anything but temporary, leaving an imprint that chills the soul long after departure. These haunting encounters in the hostel serve as a stark reminder that we may not always be as alone as we think, especially when the lights go out. The nature of these phenomena remains a profound mystery. Are they echoes of past lives, trapped in a loop of sorrow or trauma, or are they something else entirely? Entities from beyond our comprehension, drawn to the transient energies of such places. We may never truly know, but the consistency of these accounts from disparate individuals in disparate locations suggests a reality to these experiences, however unsettling.